The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. The Canadian Dental Care Plan is working. Sorta, says Dr. Bruce Ward, the president of the Canadian Dental Association. Ward goes on to say, as of the end of 2025, more than 5.5 million people were approved for coverage. However, not all of them have received care yet. According to government figures, 3.5 million people have seen a dentist. The numbers of people approved is growing, and it's expected to reach 9 million people by the time that the program fully is implemented. It's not free dental care as was first promoted by the government. One of the interesting challenges dentists face are patients who are shocked to learn the plan only covers a portion of the cost, says Ward. That confusion has led to a number of uncomfortable conversations for dentists who, rather than care for a patient, are taking valuable time to outline the rules of the plan. While the program has been embraced by dentists across the country, there have been growing pains. Not all dentists have signed on because of issues around pre-authorization, fees, and the amount of administrative work, says Ward. Even with the drawbacks, according to a 2025 survey by the Dental Association, patients report satisfaction and positive experiences. The number of Canadians with a dentist as a result has increased to 71%, up from 63% a year earlier. I invited Dr. Bruce Ward, president of the Canadian Dental Association, to join me for a conversation that matters about the dental care plan, how it's working, and what its future looks like. Bruce, if I may call you Bruce, because I know you so well.
If I can call you Stu, absolutely.
Yeah, well, we've known each other for a long time.
Yes.
You know, full disclosure, you were my dentist for quite a number of years.
And a very enjoyable experience for me too.
Well, thank you. And we're actually having this conversation because, you know, you highlighted to me years ago how important dental health is to somebody's well-being, especially as we age.
Right.
There's nothing that's changed there, has there?
No. As a matter of fact, it's become more obvious that that your dental care matters, your oral health matters to the rest of your body. When I graduated from dental school a long time ago, the dentists handled everything that went from the neck up, and doctors handled everything that went from the neck down. And there really wasn't a connection between the two. So much so that I once had a doctor who asked what this pimple was on his gum. He kept trying to go to see plastic surgeons to get it done. He had no idea what it was, zero. And he had an abscessed tooth in front of his mouth, and we did a root canal, and the little pimple went away after 10 years of wondering what it was and trying to get rid of it. And it just outlined to me the fact that he really didn't have any training in dentistry, just like I don't have any training in shoulder separation or those kind of things. And so it's been much more important over the last few years that we take care of our mouth, because it's showing up in more and more studies that the amount of dental care you've had actually does affect your overall health. And there's been some incredible statistics on that people who are missing teeth, 5 or more teeth, they're much more prone to ending up in the hospital, much more prone to hospitalization and treatment for heart disease and other conditions if they're missing more teeth. And they go, well, why is that? Unless there is some connection, and there definitely is a connection.
So I had always been quite confused by the fact that we had healthcare that, as you say, stopped about here,
yeah,
and maybe picked up again into the brain, but and going, well, why is it that when it comes to your mouth, it's not covered? So when the idea was first proposed, I felt, okay, this is a good idea. And I believe that was the sentiment amongst people who are in dentistry.
You mean the Canadian Dental Care Plan? Yeah. I mean, it came up as a result of the NDP agreeing to support the Liberals in return for certain things. And one of the things the NDP wanted was to have a dental care plan. They've been talking about it for years, for patients who are unable to afford dentistry. And so the Liberals said yes. And in 2023, the dental care plan was announced. And unlike usual government programs that can take years to be created, this one came up really fast, like 18 months, and it was ready to be rolled out. And And we realized that dental community realized along the way that the government was going to do what they were going to do, and that they really did need some advice from us, because integral to the success of the plan would be dentists participating. And if the plan didn't work for dental offices and dentists, they wouldn't participate. And so when the initial draft of the plan was brought out, it was similar to a lot of government plans. Like here in British Columbia, the fee guide that we follow every year, the British Columbia Dental Association, just like all the other provinces in Canada, they create a fee guide. And that fee guide is used by insurance companies to reimburse dentists. It's used when we talk to patients about what the treatment's going to cost, but it's also used by the government to pay for these programs that the government put into place to handle people who need dental care. And in BC right now, that program is paying dentists 42% of what our fee guide states. So if we do a $100 treatment, they'll pay us $42. And that's because over the years, the plan's been eroded, there's been changes, they've pulled things back, they've changed the rules. And a lot of dentists across the country were afraid of dealing with another government plan, because that's a similar situation across the country. Everybody's had experiences with government plans that come in with great intention and then slowly degenerate into a plan that nobody wants to deal with or participate with. So this was a big deal. This was going to cover up to 9 million people, and it was a big deal.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. So the initial response, did you go, okay, this looks pretty good, or here we are, another government plan?
It was mostly, let's wait and see what they come up with. Let's wait and see before we decide whether or not we want to participate, whether we want to play. And that was one of the things the government hadn't really checked out, whether dentists wanted to participate with the plan or not. They just said, we're going to create this plan, we're going to create it for a certain group of people, and then we're going to trot it out to the country.
Well, and just to clarify, that group of people who are an income bracket or household income bracket of $90,000 a year or less.
Right, and within those categories, there's three spots. So if you're 90,000 to 80,000, it's one level of subsidization of your dental care, 80 to 70, and below 70. Those are the three levels of income that they're looking at before they decide, how to subsidize it. And they determined that if your household income was less than $70,000, that they would pay 100% of the Canadian Dental Care Plan's fee guide. And between 70 and 80, they'd pay 60%, and between 80 and 90, they'd pay 40%. So
does that still cover the dentist costs? Like when you show up, they go, okay, we're going to pay this fee guide amount. How does that then play out in what the individual dentist needs to recover?
Well, one of the things that the dentists wanted to make sure was that we wouldn't start to accept government determined fees that were significantly lower than our fee guide. So one of the conditions that was put into our participation with the government was the ability for us to be able to bill up to our fee guide. So if the Canadian Dental Care Plan for a certain service covered 90% of that service, and you were in the under $70,000 range, they would pay 90% of that treatment, and then the dentist is allowed to charge you the additional 10%. So that actually brings it up to our fee guide, and which actually was great, because all of a sudden dentists said, I understand, we're not going to get short-shifted on this, we're going to be able to charge our regular and customary fees, and therefore we'll take patients. One of the worst things the dentist can do is see somebody come in, have a problem, and realize that the only thing you can do for that patient is extract the tooth because they can't afford to have it fixed. This took that out of the conversation for a lot of people. All of a sudden you would say, look, you're covered, your income's less than 70,000, you're covered 92% for this procedure, you're going to have to pay us 8%. And they went, are you kidding? That's a miracle. Of course I will. And so we were able to start saving teeth. Patients that have been coming for years and having a tooth out here and a tooth out there, all of a sudden said, okay, I want to get the rest of my teeth fixed up. I want to get my mouth in good shape. And now I can.
And then subsequently, they would have better health.
Of course. Absolutely. Yeah. The inflammation that comes from periodontal gum problems in your mouth actually contributes heavily to the rest of your body's problems. There's doctors out there who won't do anything for somebody's heart until their gums and mouth are in good shape. And then they'll treat your heart, or they'll treat you for heart and stroke prevention. But part of that is making sure that your oral health is in great shape.
So the government rolled it out in phases. In phase one, how did it play out?
Well, before the first phase even came out, there was a lot of consultation with Canadian Dental Association. They finally said, we don't really fully understand what it's going to take to have this plan be a success. And so they called the Canadian Dental Association, who in turn involved the provincial dental associations. There's a provincial association in each province across the country. And we all began consulting with Health Canada on what worked and what didn't work about the plans. And one of the biggest sticking points in the early days, before the plan even came out, a couple of things. The government kept saying, this is free dental care. This is free dental care. It's going to be free for you. Now, it's the Canadian...
Even at 92%, that's not free.
No, even 92% is not free. And so patients, and if you were between 70 and 80 and 80 and 90, it was definitely not free. But people didn't hear that. They just got their form in the mail saying you're being approved for this plan. Now they're going to cover 100% of the fee guide, of our fee guide. And so patients would come into the office proudly holding their card and say, yeah, I've got the plan covered. And we'd have to go, no, that's not how it is. And that led to some very uncomfortable conversations, because at that point people think the dentists are cheating the government. The dentists are cheating the system. We're gaming the system because we're charging more than we've been told it's free. And they also said it was exactly like every other dental plan, and it's really not like every other dental plan. It's more a subsidization of the fees. And so a lot of the services that are covered by a regular dental plan aren't covered by the Canadian Dental Care Plan. They're covered at different levels of reimbursement. And in the later stages of the plan, applying for approvals for more complex cases or pieces of work like crowns or partial dentures require pre-authorization. And with a regular dental plan, you just pre-authorize it, send in your x-rays, and they pre-authorize it. They say, yes, go ahead and do it, most of the time. The other way around with the Canadian Dental Care Plan, I think we're not sure if it's to contain costs or what, but it's about a 50% approval rate of these more complex procedures. So it's not.
So as a dentist, you're doing the work of going through, making the application to get the approval, and if it's not approved, then you've done that work for nothing.
Yeah,
so that would create reluctance.
Of course, you're assembling X-rays and chart notes and writing letters and sending it all off, only to get it rejected with no reasons why it's been rejected. And so that made it even harder.
Wow.
And so you've got some patients that are waiting for a long time for something to be approved, and then it's not approved, and that leads the patient to look at the dentist again saying, well, why aren't you doing your job better? But, how come you're not getting this approved for me? So there's been so many conversations at the front desk that we're privy to as we walk by with patients who are complaining about the fact that it's not free, how come it's taking so long to get this approved. That being said, it's also a huge boon to a lot of patients. And it's also a boon to a lot of dental offices, because now we can treat these patients and not accept 42% fees. If you've got somebody if the Ministry of Poverty Reduction here in BC pays you 42% of your fee guide, there's a reason that these people have that coverage. And so to ask them to pay the additional 58%, so you have the choice of either not treating the patient, accepting their 42%, or it just becomes a big problem. So this actually took that out of the conversation.
Well, that must have been hard for dentists to sort of go, yeah, I'm not so sure that I want to participate in that, yet knowing that there were people who needed dental care.
Absolutely.
Because like doctors, you have that same commitment to somebody who is in need.
Well, the plan came out with some certain rules, and that was one of the big problems at the beginning. One of the rules that the plan had when it first came out was you had to sign up on a roster. You had to say...
you being the dentist.
The dentist said, this dental office will accept the plan. And then if a patient were to call a number, they'd get the dentists in their area that were accepting plans. So some did, but a lot of people didn't want to sign up. It's not something we have to do for any other dental plan. We don't have to put ourselves on a name. And it almost becomes like, in the United States, they have these things called preferred provider organizations, where dentists sign up and patients are told, well, you can only go to these dentists because they've signed up with us. So that meant that if I had a patient of mine for 25 years and I wasn't signed up on the plan and they had the plan, I couldn't see them. They wouldn't allow me.
Wow.
They wouldn't let me take them. So that was a big problem at first. And finally the government realized that was going to be a problem because dentists were not signing up for it when it first came out. It was very slow to register because it was something we're not used to or wanted to do. So then the government said, okay, you can treat people on a case-by-case basis and just submit their treatment. You won't be on our roster, but you will be able to get reimbursed by the government. They also said that they would not reimburse the patient. And there's a percentage of dental offices across the country that we call them non-assignment offices. In other words, if you come in and have a $100 treatment done, the dentist would ask you to pay the $100. They'll fill out all your dental claim forms for your insurance. You send that in and the insurance plan would send you the money. And that's kind of how so the dental offices don't have to chase after insurance. They don't have to submit forms and be carrying a lot of debt owed by the insurance companies. Patients pay for their treatment at the time of treatment, and they get reimbursed by the dental. Because the truth is, dental insurance plans belong to the patient, not the dentist. And it's the patient that's there. So this was a different system, though. The government said, no, we're only going to pay the dental office. So any office that's out there that does not accept insurance of any kind decided not to participate in the plan. So about 10% of the offices right off the top would never do it because it didn't fit in with their business model.
And that limits access to the very care that we
Somewhat.
want people to have.
Somewhat, yes, yeah. But there's still a lot of people out there who were very happy when they said, yes, you can do it claim by claim. So all of a sudden we were able to participate with the plan. That was a big one. We also kept asking the government over and over to clarify the fact that they weren't going to be covered for free dentistry. It wasn't going to just be whatever you want.
Right.
And that it's not just a smorgasbord. You can't walk in and just say, yeah, I'll have one of these, one of those, one of those, one of those. No, there's certain things that are covered and they're covered at a certain amount. And that amount isn't necessarily the same as the BC Dental Association's fee guide. So it became this issue, and we kept on asking for better communication. And even now, I just got something the other day from an MP that said, oh yeah, we have the free dental care plan. I mean, they're still calling it free, but we're trying to educate. We spent time in Ottawa. We do a lot of advocacy in Ottawa with the Canadian Dental Association, and that was one of our big topics this year was please tell your constituents that it's not free. Tell them that they may have to pay something, and then advise them that they do need to spend some time talking to people about what to talk to their dentists about, so that it's not a surprise when you get into the office. And we didn't want to get bushwhacked by the terms of the plan.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. So, patient gets approved. Is that it? It just automatically there they are. They're approved.
They file their income tax.
Going forward for years to come.
Very good point. Good question. No, they file their income tax and on an annual basis. So they have to file their income tax on an annual basis, which also is a bit of a problem for some people who don't have access to a computer. They don't file their taxes. They're unhoused. There's all sorts of reasons why people don't file their taxes. They don't apply. They're not approved, and they can't access the plan. It's a relatively easy process. If you do file your taxes, people report. So yes, they go and they get their card. The card comes. They can bring the card into the office, and it's a very good system for us dentists because our receptionist is able to go online, make sure that you're covered. We tell the receptionist what we're going to do that day. They go in and they find out how much the plan will pay right on the spot. And so when the patient leaves, we know how much the extra charge is going to be. And they can even tell them that before they start so that it's not a surprise when they come back in. But it's only good for a year, and then they have to reapply. And that's another thing that people weren't told about. They weren't told they needed to reapply. They were just told, oh, you got the plan. And so we've had people come in for an hour-long appointment, and we look, and they haven't reapplied, and so we have to send them home, and we have to sit around for an hour waiting for the next patient to come in.
So, all in all, the program's working quite well, though. You've worked your way through a number of these things.
Yes.
But there was an interesting little wrinkle around how it's affected dental schools, which I hadn't expected.
That was there's a couple of what we call unintended consequences of the plan. And one of them hasn't come to fruition yet, and we don't know if it will. And we call that de-insurance. And so if a company has a whack of employees that are all making less than $70,000 a year, and they're providing dental insurance to their staff, their accountant might go, why are you doing that? They have the Canadian Dental Care Plan, and they all qualify for it. So you could stop paying dental insurance over here, and what that does,
tricky.
Yeah. What that does is it cuts those people out of the plan, and the plan isn't as good as private insurance. It's a good plan. It does what it's supposed to do, but it's not as good as private insurance on a lot of different levels, one of which I said earlier about the approval for different.
We haven't seen much evidence of that de-insurance, though, have we?
We have not seen it yet, no. And so we keep thinking it might happen, and we talk to the insurance industry on a regular basis at the Canadian Dental Association, and they assure us that they don't think it's going to be a big deal because dental insurance is tiny compared to pharmacy, and they're usually packaged and bundled together. And so, but it's always a worry. So that's one of the unintended consequences that we can maybe think about, but it hasn't shown up. But one of the things that has shown up, and as you said earlier, it's about dental schools. Dental schools rely on patients to train dental students and dental hygiene students. You need patients to come in. But the only thing attracting patients to come into the dental schools to get their work done is that the work is cheaper. That you can save money by going to the dental school rather than having the work done out in the public. Mm-hmm. Now, if all of a sudden you've got dental insurance, why would you take a bus 2 hours from, say, Surrey to UBC to get dental care done because it's cheaper at UBC than it is in Surrey? Now all of a sudden you've got dental insurance, so you could just go to the dentist around the corner. Not only will you save yourself a big bus ride, but you're also going to save yourself time, because the same procedure that might take an hour in practice might take the whole afternoon out at the dental school because of the slowness of the students, but also getting everything approved, making sure everything's done right. So all of a sudden dental schools now are finding they're having a harder and harder time finding patients for these dental students to work on and get trained on, and the dental hygiene students to get worked on and trained on. So that's one of the things that was, again, one of our asks at the advocacy days in Ottawa, was that we asked the government to consider helping the dental schools out, helping them out paying for some of the services and some of the fees that make it more. So if you're 60% covered by the Canadian Dental Care Plan, the dental school can either just accept that, and you don't have to pay any extra like you would in private practice, or they use the government funding to top it up to the fee guide.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. And even though the dental school is charging far less than a practicing dentist would, those fees were important to the overall economics of the school.
Absolutely. The government or the dental schools need that funding in order to keep the dental clinics going. The dental clinics are not really they're not heavily subsidized by the government in the provinces that they're in. They're mostly expected to pay their own way, and all of a sudden it is becoming harder and harder to do that.
So to wrap up, when we take a look at the program as a whole, 90+% pretty darn good. There's still some hiccups that need to be ironed.
I'd say it's 85%. Just depends. If you're one of those patients, for instance, they changed some rules recently. They changed some rules recently around what they pay for lab fees, for instance. They want to standardize lab fees versus just going with the free market. And so on the 17th of October, they said, we're going to pay lab fees from this time on. And this is all we're going to pay for the lab fee. Even though that the service might have been approved a month or 2-3 months earlier for a set of dentures, for instance, the lab fee for that can vary radically across the country and even across town. So if you had an approved denture and you did the denture, but then they changed the rule, they weren't going to honor your prior approval. So all of a sudden the dentist had to go, I'm sorry, you owe another $300 because the plan just changed the rules. Those are the kind of things and then that becomes an urban myth. That goes across the country on all the WhatsApp groups and the Facebook groups and all of these other groups, and all of a sudden the plan gets another black eye. And that's another thing where now these Canadian Dental Association, all the provincial associations go back to Health Canada, and they say, this is what's happening out there. Just so you know, this needs to be This needs to be fixed so that we don't have this as an ongoing issue. So these things are going to continue to come up over time, and as well as the fee guides, which get produced every year. Every province produces their own fee guide every year, as does the Canadian Dental Care Plan. So if all of a sudden the fees begin to go south, it's going to become a problem, and dentists will consider withdrawing their service. Like, you know,
Right.
most dentists in Canada are fairly busy. They don't need it. They don't need the hassle or the problems, and that's why the plan needs to continue to work with the profession in order to just keep it working.
Well, it does look like it's reasonably well funded, and there is a commitment to keep that funding in place.
Yeah. Yes, and it's very popular with the general population, and particularly with the senior population, who are the big voting bloc, a huge voting bloc. And so the government in charge, as well as the government who wants to be in charge, are saying, we don't want to mess with, there's some things we don't want to mess with. This is one of those things. So yes, so far, I think it's been like I've always said, I'm so proud to live in a country that actually takes this seriously and actually provides for it, compared to other countries where dentistry is cut out of the picture altogether. I think it's great that.
I agree with you. I think it's great as well.
Yep.
Thanks for coming in and shedding some light on this program, because we heard about leading up to the introduction and then not so much since.
Right.
And so thank you.
Well, thank you for asking.